Good morning. The subcommittee will come to order, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us here this morning, and I'd like to especially thank our witnesses. Let me also welcome Representative Alma Adams, who will be joining us here today. Representative Adams served on the Small Business Committee in the last Congress and has been a formidable voice in Congress for historically black colleges and universities, or HCBUs. She founded the bipartisan HBCU caucus, and her leadership on this important issue is commendable. And in fact, it is she who pushed for this hearing to happen, and I thank her for that. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Well, the purpose of today's hearing is to examine whether HBCUs are receiving adequate support from the Small Business Administration to help foster entrepreneurship. Over 150 years ago, the first HBCUs were born out of adversity to ensure African Americans had an opportunity to attend college. Today, there are more than 100 historic institutions across the country, serving nearly 300,000 students, many of whom are low income and the first in their family to attend college. HBCUs' contributions to our country are extraordinary, producing over 50% of African American professionals. Many of our nation's leaders in government, business, and academia graduated from HBCUs, including Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, Oprah Winfrey, and Langston Hughes, just to name a few. HBCUs are so deeply rooted in their local communities, partnering with schools and community organizations to improve the quality of education for disadvantaged minority students and fostering entrepreneurship. The positive economic impact HBCUs have provided to our nation also cannot be understated. Data provided by the National Center for Education Statistics reveals that graduates are responsible for 24% of the degrees earned by African Americans in STEM and generate $14.8 billion in economic activity, creating nearly 135,000 jobs. Recognizing the importance of HCBUs, President Jimmy Carter signed the first executive order to establish a White House initiative to overcome the effects of discriminatory treatment and to strengthen the capacity of HBCUs to provide a quality education. Every administration since then has issued a similar executive order continuing support for HBCUs. Most recently, President Trump signed Executive Order 13779, which set two goals. First, to increase the private sector role in strengthening HBCUs, and secondly, to enhance the HBCU's capabilities for helping young adults. As part of that initiative, the SBA is required to develop an annual plan detailing its efforts to support HBCU participation in its entrepreneurship programs. At the request of Representative Adams and 19 members of Congress, the Government Accountability Office examined SBA's entrepreneurship efforts with HBCUs. The GAO recently released its preliminary findings, which found SBA entrepreneurship activities and programs do not specifically target HBCUs, but some collaboration does exist. The GAO report found only 2 HBCUs host lead SBDCs, while there are 16 HBCUs with SBDC service centers on campus. They also concluded that over a decade, SBA signed just 24 strategic alliance memorandums with HBCUs to support minority-owned businesses, and that SBA co-sponsored 6 counseling and training activities with HBCUs over a 5-year period. Clearly, more needs to be done to strengthen the collaboration between SBA and the HBCUs. And that's why we're holding this hearing today. HBCUs offer tremendous opportunities to foster entrepreneurship and drive economic growth, particularly in underserved communities. As many of us in this room already know, small business owners in underserved communities face a number of challenges, which include access to affordable capital from traditional lenders, securing federal contracting opportunities, and a lack of a business network and mentoring. During recent testimony before our committee, Ms. Sharon Pinder testified that the loan denial rate is 3 times higher for people of color than non-minority firms, and if approved, minorities often have higher interest rates. As the chairwoman on the Subcommittee on Investigations, Oversight, and Regulations, I'm committed to working with SBA and its entrepreneurial development ecosystem to help minority entrepreneurs overcome these challenges and develop a clear path to small business ownership. This ecosystem has the ability to reach entrepreneurs to make them aware of programs like the Community Advantage Pilot Program, which is specifically designed to increase SBA guaranteed loans to small businesses in underserved areas. We know that small dollar loans greatly benefit emerging markets and startups, but these programs can't fully succeed if the SBA is not allocating resources to increase awareness and participation. It is my hope that the first panel will provide members with a better understanding of SBA's current activities to promote collaboration with HBCUs and also identify ways to strengthen that collaboration. I also look forward to the second panel, where we will hear from the leaders of 4 HBCUs. It is important to hear their perspectives on SBA's level of engagement with their faculty, students, and communities. Because in the end, this is about supporting entrepreneurs, small business, and job growth in all of our communities. And with that, I yield to Ranking Member Spano for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. As a third-generation small business owner myself, I'm very familiar with the reciprocal relationship between entrepreneurs and their surrounding communities. Communities offer vital resources and support for entrepreneurs and small businesses, and in return, those small businesses spark economic development and job growth. Educational institutions are the bedrock of their local communities and a launch pad for leaders of the next generation. Our nation's 101 historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, serve students and communities across many cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds. The Small Business Administration, or SBA, offers a variety of programs that provide resources to socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. Business assistance services are provided through a nationwide network of field offices and nonprofit resource providers, which are often located on or near college campuses. Given their complementary missions, collaboration between the SBA and HBCUs has enormous potential. Recognizing this last year, Congresswoman Alma Adams and former Congressman Dave Bratt led a letter to the Government Accountability Office, or GAO, requesting a review of SBA's outreach to HBCUs. And we're here today to receive the GAO report generated by last year's request and discuss its findings with the author of the report and the SBA official responsible for entrepreneurial efforts with HBCUs. We also have the privilege to hear from HBCU officials that have partnered with SBA to provide entrepreneurial assistance. To quote the request letter, we want to ensure that SBA is leveraging HBCUs in the most effective way. I'd like to thank the witnesses on both panels this morning for joining us today, and I yield back, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spano. The gentleman yields back. And if subcommittee members have an opening statement prepared, we would ask that they be submitted for the record. I would like to take just a minute to explain the timing rules. Each witness gets 5 minutes to testify, and the members get 5 minutes for questioning. There is a lighting system to assist you. The green light will be on when you begin, and the yellow light begins when you have 1 minute remaining. The red light comes on when you're out of time, and we ask that you stay within that time frame to the best of your ability. I would not like to introduce our witnesses on our first panel. Our first witness is Ms. Anna Maria Ortiz, the Acting Director of Financial Markets and Community Investment at the Government Accountability Office. In that position, she oversees audits related to consumer financial protection, insurance, banking, housing, and financial services. Ms. Ortiz graduated from Princeton with a degree in political economy and received her PhD and Master of Arts in Political Science from the University of Michigan. Welcome, Ms. Ortiz. Our second witness on the first panel today is Mr. Alan Gutierrez, the Associate Administrator of the Office of Entrepreneurial Development at the Small Business Administration. Prior to joining the SBA, he served as the National Executive Director of the Latino Coalition, where it grew to include 1.2 million Hispanic business owners and over 90 coalition partners. Before his time at the Latino Coalition, Mr. Gutierrez served as a senior advisor to the COO at the SBA from 2001 to 2006. He earned his Bachelor of Arts in Political Science with a minor in Business Administration from the University of Southern California. Welcome, Mr. Gutierrez. And so, Ms. Ortiz, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Chairwoman Chu, Ranking Member Spano, thank you for having me here today. Historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, play a critical role in supporting underserved students and communities. Among African Americans with advanced degrees in science, technology, math, and engineering, fully 1/3 earned their undergraduate degrees at HBCUs. Meanwhile, among the major priorities of the Small Business Administration is to help Americans start, build, and grow businesses. That is, to become effective entrepreneurs. Under the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities, SBA and other federal agencies are tasked with enhancing HBCU's capacity to compete for and participate in federal programs and initiatives. My testimony today concerns both SBA's work to promote entrepreneurship at HBCUs and preliminary observations on SBA's implementation of its goals under the White House Initiative. At heart, GAO's research suggests that SBA's uneven administration and record-keeping of its obligations underneath the White House Initiative may result in it missing opportunities to capitalize on the unique role of HBCUs in the American educational system. GAO found that although SBA's entrepreneurship programs and activities do not directly target HBCUs, some collaboration exists. Done well, these partnerships show the potential for SBA and HBCU collaboration to generate economic growth. For example, the Small Business Development Center at one HBCU, the University of the Virgin Islands, counsels students in a competition to promote startup businesses. A graduate of the university told us how the training and counseling he received during the competition was critical in launching his customized event planning company. Despite anecdotal examples of collaboration, SBA has provided GAO limited information on its activities with HBCUs. While SBA offices occasionally partner with HBCUs to offer workshops and training, several district offices reporting that they have no systematic approach to collecting data on their outreach activities. SBA officials told us that while they track co-sponsored activities, their systems are not set up in a way to allow them to identify specific institutions with which they partner, such as HBCUs. These information gaps are significant because SBA needs reliable data on its activities to gauge progress towards the agency's stated goals. Further, GAO has observed that SBA's administration of and record-keeping for the White House Initiative has not been fully transparent. For example, the agency was inconsistent in responding to GAO questions about which SBA office had responsibility for leading the initiative, provided incomplete information on some of its activities, and was not able to provide evidence for 7 of 10 agency plans it was required to prepare for the initiative between 2008 and 2018. Without a cohesive leadership and oversight strategy, SBA cannot ensure that its program and district offices are taking appropriate steps to implement its agency's plans. In its 2017 issuance of an executive order continuing the White House initiative on HBCUs, the current administration has declared its commitment to ensuring that federal agencies enhance the capacity of HBCUs and advance America's full human potential. Imagine the effects on the small business ecosystem if technologically minded HBCU graduates were to channel their energy into entrepreneurship. Effectively administering its obligations under the White House initiative would enable SBA to leverage HBCU's unique and critical role in the higher education system to spark business innovation, promote entrepreneurship, and increase economic vitality in communities throughout the United States. This concludes my oral statement. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. And now, Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you very much, Chairman Chu, Ranking Member Spano, and members of the subcommittee for inviting me to speak with you today. In 2018, SBA Administrator McMahon asked that I take a lead role in coordinating the agency's work with the President's executive order on HBCUs. Since then, our office has responsibility for preparing an annual plan, coordinating activities within SBA, attending interagency meetings related to broader federal agency HBCU outreach, in the most recent in which I attended just last week. Prior to this assignment, I did not have much context to the agency's work in response to similar previous executive orders or even the agency's history of partnerships with HBCUs through our district offices. In this sense, the GAO review was helpful in defining where the agency can be better coordinated in our activities and better capture data in our engagement going forward. SBA's district offices have a long history of interaction with HBCUs. Many of those examples I shared in my written testimony and include universities that we will hear from in the second panel. The agency has had strategic alliances with universities in Florida and Mississippi, to name a few. And 5 HBCU universities in North Carolina are part of our resource partner network and host technology development centers. Many of our alliances and partnerships are coordinated through the different programs offices at SBA. Our Office of Field Operations, OFO, oversees 68 district offices and close to 700 staff members. OFO leadership and district directors work with HBCU in their areas, like Howard University, which also serves as an example where there is a crossover into my program office. My Office of Entrepreneur Development oversees a network of programs and services that support small businesses. This network includes, which we commonly refer to as resource partners, among them, Small Business Development Centers, SBDCs. SBDCs are university-based grantees that match federal funding from SBA with state and private funding to provide counseling and training to small business entrepreneurs. Howard University serves as an SBDC lead center in Washington metropolitan area. Over the last 2 years, Administrator McMahon traveled to all 68 district offices with the purpose of seeing firsthand how our programs and services are better delivered at a local level and to better align SBA headquarters with our district offices. The result of these efforts will include more integrated customer service activities, including those involving engagement with HBCUs. Building on that, the GAO review has led to a positive internal discussion on how we can strengthen the initiatives going forward across program offices. Among our goals will be to break down any existing silos within HBCU engagements, foster greater coordination with our Office of Field Operations, and ensure consistency and data collection. Madam Chair, while the agency has a good record of partnership with HBCUs, the agency's past work with respect to the executive orders has been inconsistent, and internal ownership of the initiatives has changed from office to office. In the future, I will take responsibility for making sure our agency better coordinated across all our program offices and better in capturing and reporting on our activity. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. I look forward to continuing to work with you and committee members on this and other areas of mutual interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes for questioning. Ms. Ortiz, during the investigation, did you consult with SBA's regional offices, and were they familiar with the White House initiative to promote excellence and innovation at historically black colleges and universities?
We spoke specifically with 8 of SBA's district offices, which the agency calls their boots on the ground when it comes to delivering services and collaborating with local institutions. Of those 8 offices, 2 told us they were not familiar with the White House initiative, and 6 said they could not comment on whether they were familiar with the initiative because it was a headquarters initiative.
In your view, to what extent is outreach to HBCUs a priority for the SBA?
GAO's preliminary research suggests that outreach to HBCUs has not been a particular priority. There are some cases, for example, when SBA partners with resource partners and HBCUs in their small business development centers, both the lead centers at Howard and the University of the Virgin Islands, and a sub-center at Alabama State, where we see very effective collaboration. We also heard stories of anecdotal collaboration with district offices and local HBCUs. However, the lack of centralized information on district offices' activities with HBCUs and the lack of a cohesive leadership strategy at SBA has really hindered, I think, its progress towards fully leveraging HBCUs.
How well is SBA measuring its progress in achieving its goals and priorities related to the White House initiative on HBCUs, which is an initiative that's been around since the 1980s?
GAO found that SBA had fairly limited data on its activities with HBCUs. It records strategic alliance memoranda, of which we identified 27 schools with which SBA and HBCUs have partnered. It also records some co-sponsored activities. But in general, activities that are going on at the district offices need not be reported back up to headquarters. So SBA doesn't have a good feel for what's going on at the local level in terms of these partnerships and collaborations with HBCUs.
So the SBA identified in its 2018 agency plan for the White House initiative on HBCUs to provide HBCUs with information on accessing and competing for federal grants and contracts. In particular, the plan identifies the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Programs, which SBA oversees as available resources that are underutilized by HBCUs. In your investigation, did the SBA perform any specified outreach or programs to promote SBIR and STTR, which have a proven record, these SBA programs which have a proven record of stimulating technological innovation?
We narrowly focused our review on entrepreneurship programs, so to encompass training and counseling. So we didn't look in particular at SBIR or STTR. However, we did observe that some district offices had consulted or co-sponsored activities related to those programs. So
this was part of SBA's 2018 annual plan. So were the SBA's regional offices familiar with SBA's 2018 annual plan with regard to the HBCUs?
So far as we could tell, district offices that we spoke with, the 8 district offices we spoke with, were not generally familiar with the agency plan or the metrics for measuring outcomes under the initiative.
Okay, and Mr. Gutierrez, there are what are the 3 single most important steps SBA can take to strengthen the engagements with HBCUs?
Thank you. I would say that, as mentioned in the oral, is that certainly the buck stops with me, right? So we're moving forward and ongoing forward in terms of 3, I think, significant steps that will improve all that we've been talking about so far, which is setting up an intra-agency working group that will hold accountable all the different offices, specifically field operations, given that they do a lot of boots on the ground and activity in certain parts of the country. And I think that that is going to be a mechanism to really work with the different offices within SBA that we can capture that. The second part is data collection on a two-prong approach. One is we're going to be using the advances of technology that's been implemented in SBA and set up a SharePoint type of agency where the individuals will be able to upload their activity from the district offices or any offices, if it's a SAM that's been created, or activity with 8A or contracting or an event. And thirdly, we mentioned the SBIR. We recently announced on a press release that the SBIR tour this coming year, and we are actively looking, and we'll hopefully in the next couple of weeks be able to announce at least minimum 2 HBCUs that will participate on campus that will do an SBIR with them, not only from that perspective, but also engage in all the different areas across the country where we're going to have the SBIRs to outreach to the HBCU so they can also promote and let them know, the individuals both from faculty, students, and alumni, to be able to participate as well.
Well, thank you. My time has now expired, and the ranking member, Mr. Spano, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for Ms. Ortiz. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for the work that you've done on this. The government, the GAO conducted extensive outreach, as you mentioned earlier, to SBA and HBCUs to complete the report. Which offices of the SBA provided documents and information for the report?
To clarify, are you asking about the central offices or the regional district offices?
Both.
Okay. We spoke with the Office of Entrepreneurial Development. We spoke with the Office of Strategic Alliance. We spoke with a representative from the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives. We also spoke with 8 district offices, including the Washington, D.C. office, the North Florida office, the Georgia office, the Maryland office, the Puerto Rico district office, and several others.
Which of the regional offices were responsive to your requests for information?
All of the regional offices were very responsive in talking with us about what activities they had. However, only a few of those district offices really tracked their activities. For example, the West Virginia district office informally tracks its specific activities with HBCUs. And the North Florida office also does some tracking of its activities with HBCUs.
But those were the only 2.
No. In fact, all 8 had some sort of information with respect to their activities, but in terms of tracking, the actual documentation is not consistent across the 8.
Right.
Technically, they're required to report co-sponsored activities back to headquarters, but we're not confident that we have a full record of all of those co-sponsored activities.
Is it your opinion that it's typically a good idea to track this type of information for the GAO to offer really, some kind of a credible opinion about whether the program is effective?
Well, certainly for GAO's sake, it's good to track this information, but moreover for SBA to gauge whether it's meeting its own agency goals. Right. It outlines 5 specific goals under the agency plan, including number of outreach events, number of attendees, HBCU partnerships established, percent of HBCUs that seek federal funding, and percent of HBCUs that find it useful, but it does not collect systematic information that would allow it to measure its progress on any of those goals.
To your understanding, what information is going to be included in your next report?
In our next report, we're going to be speaking more with district offices and also with specific HBCUs about their activities. We'll also be talking with SBA some more about its reporting and tracking activities. There is evidently an activity contact report that district offices use to file information back up to headquarters, but we don't quite understand yet why it is that document isn't used consistently or can't be used to identify institutions with which SBA partners.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mr. Gutierrez. Thank you for being here, and hope you don't take this as kind of a accusatory approach with you. We just want to kind of get to the bottom of everything and make sure we're providing effective services to HBCUs. What is it, in your opinion, that is number one? I'm assuming that you would agree that it's important that SBA work effectively with HBCUs to fulfill its purpose.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Yeah. So what do you think it's practical to expect that you're able to obtain the information necessary for us all, here on this dais and as the House, and certainly the GAO to verify, in fact, that we're doing what we need to be doing with respect to that cooperation?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, as mentioned, there's a lot of good work that we're doing out in the field. And certainly with this particular GAO and working with them and working with everybody in the agency, certainly this is going to help us as we move forward to improve, right? And the improvement in terms of I mentioned is really I'm taking full responsibility, making sure that we, by the end of the year, we're implementing the systems that we can adequately then be able to report what activity collectively, both from the field, office field operations, and other offices within the agency. So definitely, I think that it's important, and certainly it's an important initiative, and we will continue to work together.
Well, thank you. I just really briefly, we talk a lot about, in my small business community, we say what gets measured gets done.
Yes.
What gets measured gets done. And so it's important that we can measure the effectiveness of the SBA. So thank you for your cooperation in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. So now the gentleman, Mr. Evans from Pennsylvania, who is the vice chair of the committee, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I, too, want to thank Congresswoman Adams for her leadership on this. She has been relentless. I compliment her first and foremost. Mr. Gutierrez, you heard Ms. Ortiz, and there seems to be an inconsistency in what you are saying and what she's saying. And you just stated that you have 3 points in an agency task force, data collection, and the SBIR press release. How are we going to have confidence after listening to the GAO report and hearing you come before us and tell us this is what you plan to do for the future? How do we have confidence that that's going to become a reality? Because we understand the importance of the historical black colleges, as the chairwoman said, to the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, but you have stated something and it seems like you're saying one thing, but it doesn't seem to be connected. So I need you to be a little bit more direct than you've been, in my view. Congresswoman Adams knows far more about this than I do, but it seems like there's an inconsistency. So do you want to kind of respond what Ms. Ortiz has said?
No, definitely. Yes, thank you for the question, sir. I would say, the confidence level is, I am saying here publicly that it's under my watch now. It's my responsibility. And moving forward, it's a priority. And we're going to make sure that at next hearing, if there's any other ones, that I will be able to, from collectively making sure that the whole agency is on one page, right? And I think that there's a lot that we've noticed that has been done in the field. But in terms of what was mentioning previously by Ms. Ortiz, is that collectively and gathering that information in the past, which I wasn't involved with, was not something of the best practices. Moving forward certainly is something that, in my overview and oversight, I can guarantee you that will be much better.
But the point of, I understand the usefulness of these strategic alliance memorandums, and this is to both the panel, can anyone give any experience with these memorandums? It seems to be ceremony and symbolism. It doesn't seem to actually do anything. I see there's the White House. They have signed this executive order, and then it turns around when it comes down to your agency, who has the responsibility for implementation. That is not occurring. And in the meantime, that means our constituents, in the case of Pennsylvania, we have Cheney University, which was the first, I say that to my colleague from North Carolina, and then there's Lincoln University.
We're the largest.
The fact of the matter is, I just don't understand. So I need you, I mean, you know, both of you to talk about these strategic alliance. They seem like they're not worth anything the paper they're written on.
Yeah, if I may, certainly, I would say that just recently, and I know the next panel, we're excited, or the next panel that's coming on afterwards, because they all have a either strategic alliance or a partnership with SBA. Recently with Shaw University and Benedict College, that we're moving forward. Those are new SAMs, strategic alliances, in terms of holding, if you don't measure, then, what good is it on paper, right? And I agree with you. So in terms of how we're moving forward with these strategic alliances, certainly I know how we're going to be working together with the regional administrators, the district offices, and so forth, and having joint 8A type of workshops or government contracting on how to and so forth. So moving forward, I can definitely say that, it's not just a photo opportunity in that aspect. From the past, I couldn't unfortunately answer to you on those.
Let me get Ms. Ortiz in.
Right. I think it's important to realize that these strategic alliance memos are a really blunt instrument, and they are, by the agency's own acknowledgement, largely symbolic. We heard from district offices that when they have a good relationship with an HBCU, a strategic alliance memo is not necessary. So it is possible that there are some district offices and some HBCUs that have had very positive experiences without having one of these memoranda in place. However, we've also heard from other colleges, such as Morehouse College, that after the SBA and Morehouse co-signed a strategic alliance memo, the university heard very little from SBA and felt like there was no follow-through on the SBA's part.
Thank you. You're back to bouncing my time.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired, and now the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Burchett, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Lady, members of the committee, ranking member. Did I leave anybody out? Good. Staff members, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I guess I come to this from a different perspective. My sweet mama, for the record, Chair Lady, I'm an unrepentant mama's boy. My mama taught at Knoxville College, which was a wonderful school, and unfortunately it's kind of fallen on hard times, and we're trying to rebuild that now. I can remember shortly before my mama went to heaven that the former president, and his wife came to my mama's bed, and she was already pretty much, she was in there in body, but I think she was pretty much already gone to heaven. And they prayed over her, and they sang with her, and I remember Miss Turner even brushed my mama's hair. So let one of our public universities try to do that. So I'm kind of close to those folks, and they when my mama died, they put her in their Hall of Fame. So that meant a lot to me and my family. And so I come at it from a little different angle, and I guess Ms. Ortiz, did I say that right, Ortiz? Now, two of the colleges that signed on to this alliance, the strategic alliance with SBA, you mentioned, are in Tennessee. And what can I do as a congressman on this committee to help foster that relationship between those schools and the SBA in order to grow entrepreneurship in my home state? I see a lot of it out there in the community, and I see young folks, they just need something to kind of help them get a little boost up. And I'm curious what you all have to say. And thank you all again for being here.
Sure, thank you. Yes, there are two colleges or two HBCUs in your state with co-sponsored, that have signed co-sponsored agreements, although only one of those is currently, I'm sorry, I said co-sponsored, I meant signed strategic alliance memos.
Yes, ma'am.
But only one of those is currently active. I think as a congressperson, supporting HBCUs, checking in with district offices, asking what more could be done, finding out what the needs of students are all things that could contribute to advancing these partnerships. We heard from some stakeholders that they didn't feel that the mandate from Congress was strong enough in terms of outlining SBA HBCU collaboration. We also heard from some professors that told us that building a business is the last thing on a student's mind if they graduate with a lot of college debt. those were not issues that were a focus of our review, but they are things that Congress, in its broad oversight responsibility, could think about and implement policies to help with.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gutierrez, did I say that right? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Say Burchett.
Next time.
All right, thank you. Good answer. All right, can you elaborate on what the SBA intends to do with regards to the small business innovation, the program road tours, and will this be on campuses across the country or in communities? Because like Knoxville College, as I stated, it's pretty much gone away, except for basically just somebody keeping up the buildings, and they're not able to even do that. And then there's a huge community around there that still follows KC. I mean, the alumni association is still active, and when they have reunions, there's more people on campus there than there are when the school was actually functioning. So.
Sure. I would say on the SBIR Road Tour, I know in previous, last year, there were some done on campus, but it's a combination, a two-prong approach. Some are done on incubators or host organizations from that standpoint. But one of the things that I'll be working with the team in the oversees the SBIR program, STTR, is really the emphasis on having at least minimum of 2 on campus. We're looking at, there's coming up first is the Central Plains, Southwest, and then Eastern, and then Miami, Puerto Rico. Throughout this fiscal year. So we will be working on announcing those on that aspect. At minimum, to work with all the HBCUs to really make sure that they're aware of it, so we can also engage them to participate from that standpoint. I'd like to also add that we recently announced 7 new regional innovative clusters, and one of the clusters, which is Ag Launch, is a combination and working together with Tennessee State University. So that's going to be a great opportunity, and it's working with an HBCU from that standpoint.
And if I've got 6 seconds, but if y'all come to East Tennessee, could you have somebody give me a call? I'd like to just be a part of it. I don't
Definitely.
have to be recognized or anything, but that'd be great.
Definitely,
Thank
sir.
you, Chair Lady.
Thank you. And now the gentle lady from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. For both panels, actually, I do want to recognize all of the administrators from our HBCUs, in particular, Dr. Dillard from North Carolina. Madam Chair, we have 11 HBCUs, actually. Let me just say for a very long time, I have dedicated my life to HBCUs. It was an HBCU that took me in and moved me up the academic arena to get my college degree from North Carolina A&T State University. I spent 40 years as a college professor at Bennett College, an HBCU in Greensboro. So I know firsthand what our HBCUs do and how important they are to students like me, first-generation students. So I'm not going to go into all of the statistics that you heard our chair, and I want to thank our chair and also the chair of the committee, of the overall committee, Chairwoman Velasquez, for holding this hearing. But I do want to say that we have through the bipartisan HBCU caucus, of which I founded when I came here, and I'm chairing that with Congressman Bradley Byrne from Alabama. And of course, we put this together to expand the dialogue nationally and to create a level of understanding here at the Congress about how valuable our HBCUs are. And we're looking at a challenge which we unveiled, a HBCU Partnership Challenge in 2017, to strengthen the public-private investments in HBCUs, because that is necessary. And we have 25 companies involved right now. I do want to just shout out Live Oak and Bank and Intel. I won't go through all of the impressive statistics, and what I want to do is to get right to my questions. But just to say, as we've heard, historically, HBCUs have been at a disadvantage when it comes to federal resources. I've heard you talk about collaboration. I'm hoping, if nothing else is remembered, is that we can move from collaboration to contracts, because words are words, and they mean things, but we've got to do more than just talk the talk. We must walk it too. But let me just begin with my first question, and to Mr. Gutierrez, you testified and you mentioned that that the SBA has a long history of working with HBCUs, including signing these strategic alliances. But your colleague mentioned that they're largely symbolic, and I certainly appreciate the commitment that you're making here publicly, and we certainly want to follow you and hope that will happen. I don't personally think there's a lot going on with the White House initiative. Quite frankly, I'm going to be real honest about that. I think that's symbolic too, and we've got to move past that. But let me ask you, do you believe that HBCUs play an important role in our society?
Definitely, they do, and
All right.
all do, definitely.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you had some plans to initiate you didn't say, you said strategic partnerships. What are your plans to initiate contracts with HBCUs? Because I understand there are only two, really, right now. You've got 24 partnerships, you've got 2 contracts.
The two grantees, those are through the SBDC network, definitely. One thing that in my recent meeting last week, in looking at the multiplier effect and working with the other agencies as well, for example, Department of Energy, USDA, and so forth, in terms of really us being the conduit and helping on HBCUs with regards to the counseling and training, and then combining that with the opportunity of funding from the other agencies to really work as a win-win trifecta approach from that standpoint.
Right.
That's one way.
Okay, Ms. Ortez, I want to thank you for actually getting busy and getting the study done. But small businesses are the backbone of our economy. How can SBA and the federal government better ensure that HBCU students are equipped with the tools and the resources to launch successful entrepreneurial endeavors? We've got about 19 seconds.
Okay. SBA right now has a plan. It has mandates under the White House initiative. It has its own stated goals under its agency plan. With a cohesive leadership strategy that focuses on this effort, increases communication with district offices about expectations, and sets some minimum record-keeping standards in order to make sure that we're really capturing the extent of SBA activities at the local level with HBCUs. SBA could definitely make progress toward that goal.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your testimony. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to invite you to come to North Carolina, that we can have a round table. We can bring all of our HBCU presidents and administrators together. We think we can help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now the gentle lady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Houlihan, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for coming and speaking with us today. I have so many questions, and I don't actually know where to start. I do agree with one of the prior folks who says it's very important to measure what matters, right? And if we're not measuring it, then we don't know where we are in the state of where we are. But I actually would like to know the inverse. Do we measure in non-historically black colleges the impact and reach of the SBA? Yes. Thank you.
No, yes, we do. Ms. Ortiz mentioned about the activity contact report that's done by all the district offices and all the activity it's done, what we do with all the different stakeholders in the communities and the partnerships and so forth as it relates to the different lanes, if it's counseling, if it's access to capital, if it's government contract, business development, if it's on the unfortunate side of disaster assistance and so forth. So we do track all that, and certainly from our standpoint, from the Office of Entrepreneur Development, we do through the CBJ or the CJ, Congressional Justification, on a yearly basis, upload those numbers and report them here to Congress.
So I represent the 6th District in Pennsylvania, and I arguably, according to my research, Lincoln University is the nation's oldest HBC. that is a degree awarding university. And I actually am fascinated by the fact that it would appear as though there hasn't been any outreach from the SBA. It looks like from my research as well that there are two offices that potentially could have contact with them, one that's about 40 miles away, one that's about 60 miles away. And although that is a long distance, it's not an impenetrable distance. Is there anything that you can think of, aside from having not measured this before, that would have prohibited SBA from contacting Lincoln University or having some sort of a relationship with them?
What I would say is that certainly we'll follow up with our district offices in surrounding areas, and as I mentioned, in terms of moving forward, certainly is in not just those three areas that I mentioned about, but certainly an ongoing communication and outreach, and really working with the head, my peer in the Office of Field Operations, the AA, Associate Administrator, to really continue to stress and work with the district offices, the regional administrators, and so forth. I was just in Pennsylvania, I forgot to mention to both of you, last month, meeting with all the lenders as well as all the different stakeholders, and how we can continue to make ongoing impact in the great state of Pennsylvania. So we'll continue to do that.
And do you have any idea, maybe off the top of your head, or could you get me the information about colleges within the Philadelphia greater area that do have an existing relationship, just so that I can compare and contrast? Because we are, I think, second to Boston in terms of the number of universities that are within our immediate, geographical area. And I'd love to know just how many of them you already are working with.
Definitely, I'll definitely get that from my staff.
And
provide
what
that to
do you think, short of having to have a formal relationship or a strategic alliance, do you have to do to be able to have a relationship with Lincoln University? Does it take a formal agreement, or can there be something that's informal?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's what I was going to follow up on Mrs. Ortiz's comment there. Maybe in the past, unfortunately, that was the case, but I'm saying how we're moving forward. It's not going to require a SAM to be able to have the district director offices to really engage and work with all. Certainly, ongoing from this administration is how we can do much better in all different facets, and also in rural America as well. So all these components come together really on holding the outcomes related that we want from all the district offices in that aspect to put the pedal to the metal.
Thank you very much for that. And I guess my last comment is more of a comment rather than a question. Ms. Ortiz, you mentioned that people had given you feedback that it was hard to get traction when people were worried about their student debt and their student loans rather than worried about being an entrepreneur. I was fortunate. I had ROTC scholarships that allow me to graduate without any debt, and I was able to be a successful entrepreneur as a consequence. But there is actually legislation, pending legislation, that is about exactly that issue, which is supporting young entrepreneurs who have ideas in underserved communities and want to be entrepreneurial and do have student debt, to either have it forgiven or reduced in some ways. And so I would advocate for the Supporting America's Young Entrepreneur Act, because I think that is something that would allow people to be able to reduce their debt and also be entrepreneurial at the same time. And thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. And thank you to our distinguished panel for taking the time to walk us through our many questions. I'm sure we will stay in touch on this issue as we work towards greater collaboration between the HBCUs and the SBA. You are now excused, and we will now take a moment while we get our next panel set up. Okay, we would like to call our second panel up, and I'd like to take a minute now to introduce each of you before turning it over for testimony. Our first witness is Dr. Paulette Dillard, the president of Shaw University. Dr. Dillard is the 18th president of Shaw University, and she previously served as the university's vice president for academic affairs and dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Dillard graduated from Barber Scotia College in Concord, North Carolina. She received her Master of Business Administration from Belmont University, Nashville, Tennessee, and a Master of Science in Biology from Tennessee State University. She earned her PhD in Biological Sciences from Atlanta University. Welcome, Dr. Dillard. Our second witness is Dr. Baron Arch Harvey, the Dean of the Business School at Howard University. Under the longstanding leadership of Dr. Harvey, Howard University Business School has been continuously ranked among the top business programs in the nation. Dr. Harvey is an internationally renowned business management training specialist and has appeared in many television programs to discuss business issues and cultural diversity. He has also published numerous scholarly works and founded several organizations, including the HBCU Business Deans Roundtable. Dr. Harvey earned a Master of Business Administration and Accounting and a PhD in Organization, Behavior, and Management Theory from the University of Nebraska. Welcome, Dr. Harvey. Our third witness is Dr. Michael Casson, the Dean of the College of Business at Delaware State University. He's the founding executive director of the University Center for Economic Development and International Trade. He received his undergraduate degree from Florida A&M University, a master in economics from the University of Wisconsin, and a PhD in agricultural and resource economics from the University of Connecticut. He belongs to numerous professional organizations and has published a number of reports on topics including African Americans, small business, and workforce inclusion. Welcome, Dr. Casson. I would now like to yield to our ranking member, Mr. Spano, to introduce our final witness.
Thank you, Chairwoman Chu. It's my honor to introduce our final witness, Dr. Rosalind Clark Artis. Dr. Artis is the first female president for two education institutions, first at Florida Memorial University in Miami, Florida, and now at Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. Last year, she was named the Female President of the Year by HBCU Digest and was recognized as a woman of influence by the Columbia Regional Business Report. Dr. Artis is a graduate of Vanderbilt University, where she earned a doctorate in higher education leadership and policy. She also holds a Juris Doctorate from West Virginia University College of Law and a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from an HBCU, West Virginia State University. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Artis. We appreciate your expertise. I yield back.
Thank you very much. And now, Dr. Dillard, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name, as you've heard, is Dr. Paulette Dillard. I serve as the 18th president of Shaw University. Shaw is a proud historically black college and university founded in 1865 and is the first HBCU in the South, located in Raleigh, North Carolina, with a mission to advance knowledge, facilitate student learning and achievement, to enhance the spiritual and ethical values of its students, and to transform a diverse community of learners into future global leaders. It is clear that Shaw is committed to student success. I was asked to testify before the subcommittee about Shaw's experiences and relationship with the Small Business Administration. Shaw currently has a strategic alliance memorandum with the SBA. The initial SAM was signed on January 13th, 2013. This contractual agreement with the SBA through the North Carolina District Office has a purpose of developing and fostering a working relationship to strengthen small businesses in the local area. As part of that partnership, Shaw opened what is called the Small Business Resource Center, and that center was opened in fall of 2013. The SBRC partnership with the SBA provides the following: office space that includes a reception and resource materials area, a conference room for meetings and for workshops, an employee dedicated to managing and facilitating the activities, and assistance to students and members of the Raleigh community with resources to start, finance, and operate a successful business. Not only does the SBA help to provide materials and services for the SBRC, but the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, that is a partnership with Shaw, also serves as a partner, and Shaw is able to host seminars and workshops on a variety of business subjects. The SBA office and the surrounding business community provide resources and presenters for these activities. In addition, the SBA provides small business resource materials, including pamphlets, brochures, website resource references, and contacts with key business community leaders. Although Shaw has been able to benefit from the SAM, there is much more that we believe can be done. We believe that in addition to workshops, it would be wonderful to be able to extend those workshops to include certifications that would allow students to be reasonably employed by small businesses in the community in which we reside. In addition, access to websites that are owned by the SBA to be able to readily provide information targeted to the questions that small businesses have at the moment. In addition, it would be helpful if the SBRC at Shaw University had the benefit of a website social media link directly to the SBA. I would like to thank Chairwoman Velasquez, Representative Alma Adams, and the remaining members of Congress for requesting that the Government Accountability Office look into SBA's relationship with entrepreneurs and HBCUs.
Thank you, Dr. Dillard. Dr. Harvey, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning. I want to express my appreciation to the Honorable Judy Chu and the Honorable Ross Spano and distinguished members of the subcommittee for this opportunity to testify in support of enhancing and expanding SBA's partnership with historically black colleges and universities. I'd also like to thank the Honorable Alma Adams for her advocacy on behalf of HBCUs and who has created this wonderful opportunity for us to share information. HBCUs represent a wonderful opportunity for the U.S. Small Business Administration to have greater impact and expand its programs and allow for more innovative kinds of programs and activities. Howard University has had a great relationship with SBA and has hosted a lead SBD center for the last 40 years. However, the time that I have, I would like to share recommendations that I think could be impactful going forward for SBA. First and foremost, I think the small business development centers, in concert with HBCUs, should develop more college credit entrepreneurship training programs that will have a focus on students, particularly those in the sciences, technology, engineering, health, and medicine. I'd also like to challenge the SBA to require the small business development centers to track the number of students, particularly those of color, that they are able to attract to their programs, workshops, and activities. I'd also like to recommend to SBA that they encourage small business development centers with HBCUs to develop a student externship program where students in business, engineering, technology, and the sciences can provide much needed consulting services for African American, women-owned, and minority-owned small businesses in their communities. My next recommendation is that it is important that a serious and enriching and developing partnership with SBA would also have funding for HBCU faculty and its graduate students to conduct on an annual basis research about the problems and opportunities and challenges that are confronting African American entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs and women in their specific community and geographic location. One of the major challenges also, which we've heard, confronting African American and minority entrepreneurs has to do with access to capital, no question about it. I'd like to recommend to SBA that in partnership with HBCUs, that they develop a SBA loan candidacy program, which would be designed to prepare minority and women loan applicants for SBA guaranteed loans. As you know, the information that is contained in the literature today, many of minority and African American entrepreneurs won't even apply for an SBA guaranteed loan for fear of rejection. This kind of program would address that issue. I've heard that Mr. Gutierrez has spoken about the roadshow for the technology transfer program that is administered through the SBA and other government agencies. My recommendation is that they expand that program to have a 2-year cycle to visit as many HBCUs as they can with a goal of at least 80 in a year. I'd also like to suggest that the SBA convene a conference with SBA district directors, executive directors of small business development centers, and the National HBCU Business Deans Roundtable to engage in a dialogue about ways to expand and impact future strategies around helping HBCUs work with African American and minority entrepreneurs. My overarching recommendation to SBA is to implement a unique and special partnership with HBCUs, including expanding the number of SBDCs, sub-centers at HBCUs from 16 to 50 over the next 36 months. Thank you for this opportunity to present this testimony on behalf of historically black colleges and universities.
Thank you, Dr. Harvey. And now, Dr. Casson, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning. I would like to thank the subcommittee for the opportunity to share my testimony. I will start by just speaking about our current relationship with SBDC or SBA. Delaware State University currently has been a lead SBDC from 2001 to 2013, has also served as a site location, and has received the Prime Grant Award funding, which we used to actually start a mobile entrepreneurship training initiative. Now, this SBA support has provided specific clients with invaluable insight and resources for furthering their own enterprises. However, the impact of the SBA's funding and services could be exponentially more significant if the university and the SBA strategically work together to develop a targeted programming that effectively integrates the talents and resources of both entities. So to this end, there are 3 areas of focus that the SBA can engage the university that will further both of our missions. First, infrastructure. Second, alumni community partnerships. And third, student engagement. So regarding infrastructure, not unlike many universities across the country, research, teaching, and service represents the 3 pillars in higher education. However, there is one distinct difference when comparing HBCUs and predominantly white institutions: their ability to effectively monetize their research and service. HBCUs have traditionally and currently focused their revenue generation efforts on the enterprise of teaching, pressing their respective admissions offices to increase enrollment to support growing financial gaps with little attention being given to research and service. Contrarily, universities such as Johns Hopkins and University of Washington garner up to $2 billion in federal funding alone for their research and service activities. These institutions have effectively leveraged their full capacity of their brain trust by deploying the expertise of their faculty, staff, and students to solve many of the world's most challenging problems. The ability of these universities to effectively and efficiently deploy their resources for the public good is not by chance, but rather by design. And it is this design that our university and many other HBCUs could utilize the expertise within the SBA to develop further. SBA opportunities such as SBIR and STTR, in addition to the billions of products and services needs of the federal government and private sector, requires a university's infrastructure that is designed to leverage its assets both immediately and efficiently. For example, the SBA can play a critical knowledge role in HBCU's pursuit of the creation of Center of Excellence designed to respond to global products and service needs through innovation. Regarding alumni and community, the fastest growing population of entrepreneurs are African Americans, specifically African American women. However, even though with this high propensity to become their own boss, African Americans' road to business stability and expansion is paved with limited resources to capital, professional network, and technical know-how. However, a viable partnership between HBCUs and the SBA, uniquely weaving and tailoring our various assets, could provide the necessary platform to engage the African American small business community, as well as plug the resource gaps. For example, HBCUs are uniquely linked to African American community organizations such as fraternities and sororities, ministerial alliances, urban leagues, agriculture associations, all of whom have economic development as part of their mission. Moreover, DSU, like many other HBCUs, have a large first-generation population, representing many of the metropolitan areas of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Thus, the SBA, in partnership with HBCUs, can create a network of services that extends into the communities that they represent. Finally, student engagement. Per a recent Young Entrepreneur Foundation survey, 90% of teachers and guidance counselors say their students are interested in becoming entrepreneurs. However, 75% of them say that their students have no idea where to go for guidance. Unfortunately, the cultivation of this phenomenon amongst incoming freshmen and upperclassmen is often absent at our HBCUs due to lack of resources and or capacity. However, a strategic partnership with the SBA could be vital in our efforts to design and provide this type of knowledge and skill base via curricular and co-curricular activities. For example, the establishment of multidisciplinary innovation labs, shared entrepreneurship ideation spaces, and skills trainings are all areas where the SBA resources and expertise could play a vital role in the development of our student business acumen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Casson. And now, Dr. Artis, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairwoman Chu, Ranking Member Spano, members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. I serve as the 14th president of Benedict College. Founded in 1870 by Bathsheba A. Benedict, the institution is a private coeducational liberal arts institution with 2,200 students enrolled in its 34 baccalaureate degree programs as of the 2017-18 academic year. Benedict has been highly regarded and exceptionally ranked for its programs by several academic and traditional publications, including the Washington Monthly Magazine, as one of the top baccalaureate colleges in the nation for creating social mobility and producing cutting-edge research and scholarship. I've been asked to testify before the subcommittee about Benedict's experiences and relationship with the Small Business Administration. Benedict has a college-sponsored business development center located on its campus, and the center currently has a Strategic Alliance Memorandum, or SAM, with the SBA. The initial SAM was signed by Benedict on October 30, 2013, and the most recent SAM was signed on April 9, 2019. This agreement with the SBA, facilitated by the South Carolina District Office, is designed to help start, maintain, and expand small businesses. Through this agreement, since 2013, Benedict has been able to host 3 SBA Business Roundtable discussions in 2013, 14, and 15, respectively. Complete an agreement with the FDIC Regional Office to utilize the Money Smart Financial Literacy curriculum with Benedict College students and community residents in 2014. host a business management training course for local entrepreneurs and X-level training in 2016, and partner with the Benedict Allen Community Development Center to provide technical assistance pertaining to marketing, accounting, and management to borrowers of the CDC's Benedict Minority Loan Fund from 2013 to 2016. Most recently, we've been able to restructure the technical assistance and incubator programs within the BDC, and finally to create a Student Innovation Hub program within our BDC in 2018. Clearly, Benedict has been able to benefit from the SAM and the SBA. However, there are improvements that could be implemented to further enhance the relationship between the two entities. As part of the SAM, developing an action plan or timetable of program activities or events that can be implemented in partnership with Benedict and the SBA. Designating specific resources, program funds, staffs, etc., that can be utilized by both parties for use in implementing the SAM, assisting the college through the use of new and existing SBA relationships, strengthening the SAM by committing financial resources from SBA to assist with business technical assistance through the college's BDC, and having SBA provide co-branding and marketing support with Benedict College and others to assist with marketing capacity and increase awareness in the surrounding communities of the services provided through the relationship with the SBA. I would like to thank Chairwoman Nydia Velasquez, Representative Alma Adams, and the remaining members of Congress for requesting that the Government Accountability Office look into SBA's entrepreneurship efforts with HBCUs. We've learned that SBA's goals, as identified in their 2018 strategic plan submitted to the Secretary of Education and the Executive Director of the White House Initiative on HBCUs, were to 1, raise awareness and provide information that would help raise the capacity of HBCUs to participate in federally funded programs, and 2, promote collaboration among HBCUs and SBA resource partners in district offices. In an effort to accomplish goal number 1, both the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer programs were mentioned. SBA indicates that these programs are underutilized by HBCUs, but what the report fails to disclose is that funding requested for these very same programs in fiscal year 2020 budget request was significantly lower at $3 million compared to the $5.99 million that was enacted in fiscal year 2019, a $2.99 million decrease. SBA's stated goals are a direct response to the Executive Order 13779, and the 116th Congress has taken measures to codify this executive order. While the United States Senate has already passed 461, the HBCU Propelling Agency Relationships Toward New Era of Results for Students Partners Act, there remains concern in the HBCU community regarding this legislation and whether or not it goes far enough to truly increase transparency within the federal government. H.R. 1054 and the HBCU Partners Act is similar to the Senate bill, but includes stronger provisions that would be supported by the HBCU community. In conclusion, HBCUs are valuable institutions that not only contribute to society, but provide an invaluable experience for our students, especially those who are low-wealth first generation. I hope to see greater collaboration between the Small Business Association and HBCUs, and also hope to see meaningful legislation passed in the 116th Congress to truly strengthen the Executive Order 13779. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all that you've shared with us. And now I will begin by recognizing myself for questioning for 5 minutes. And this question is for any number of people that wish to respond on the panel. HBCUs are fostering innovation for a disproportionate percentage of low-income and middle-income students across the country. They offer tremendous opportunities to drive economic growth, particularly in underserved communities. In your view, what is the most impactful thing the SBA can do to help minority entrepreneurs overcome challenges and develop a clear path to small business ownership?
From my perspective, I think very strongly that there should be a greater partnership around the programs that SBDC offers and the ability for our HBCU students to access those programs. It also would be helpful if, as I stated in my brief remarks, that these programs be credit granting as well. I believe very strongly that there's a great opportunity for SBA and HBCUs to really educate the next generation of entrepreneurs by making sure that they are aware of not only the opportunities and challenges, but also the programs that are offered by the SBA. When it's time for them to make that move, they'll be very knowledgeable about how to navigate the SBA resources that will help them be successful.
Anyone else?
I would like to add that many of our HBCUs are located in underserved communities, and there are a number of small businesses in those communities that could benefit from having students help to get those businesses up and running. I think that in addition to credit, I think there is great value to having certification type workshops that you don't just attend for a couple of hours a day, but that you participate in a series of workshops that yields a credential that is useful for the small business that you would be participating in, and you would have an opportunity to expand the community as well as the student learning. And I think it is an incredible opportunity.
So I would add, I guess the first thing I would say is if we believe that, or if we subscribe to the notion that necessity is the mother of inventions, then not providing the resources to these communities just doesn't make sense. We have incredibly talented youth and adults in these communities that are looking for opportunities to become entrepreneurs. Having said that, I think the coordination of the dollars as well. So working with the Economic Development Administration, for instance, and trying to create entrepreneurial ecosystems and thinking about how the Economic Development Administration can work or partner with the SBA and or other community organizations using the HBCU as that the impetus for those type of engagements, I think would be extremely impactful.
Recognizing time limitations, awareness, accountability, and access. Awareness to the various opportunities provided by the SBA, including technical assistance and certainly microlending and other financial supports for young people who want to start businesses and simply don't know how to acquire resources necessary to do the same. Accountability by virtue of the tracking that's been discussed here extensively today. And finally, thinking through ways to improve capacity on the part of small businesses. We know that as small businesses begin to grow, one of the biggest challenges for them, insurance bonding capacity and the ability to compete for government contracts. So let's not limit ourselves to simply thinking about small mom and pop businesses, but rather developing capacity among these businesses in low-resourced, underserved communities that can really develop capacity and strengthen our country.
And again, for anybody on the panel in the limited time I have left, are you familiar with SBA's 2018 annual plan, which was developed in response to the White House initiative promoting excellence and innovation at historically black colleges and universities? Can you provide feedback on this plan and on what more can be done to foster an ongoing dialogue between SBA and HBCUs?
I am familiar with the 2018 strategic plan, and I have some concerns about the gaps in the transparency of the organization in responding to some of the criteria within the plan. When you can answer a statement with a one-syllable yes or none, then it causes concerns about how valid is that plan and how intentional. So I would like to see some attention to requiring action items and plans and explanations for why particular aspects of the plan are not achieved.
Okay, my time has expired. And so the ranking member, Mr. Spano, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to say initially, we've been involved in some mentorship programs in the small business space back home in our district for several years. I just think they're incredibly exciting, incredibly effective. Dr. Harvey, you mentioned externship program. Dr. Casson, you mentioned the possibility of an alumni mentorship program. I mean, imagine a scenario where you have alumni community partners who are engaged in a program that provides mentorship and externship programs for students. I mean, I get chills thinking about it and talking about it. How incredibly exciting that would be to me. Boy, SBA could really play a vital role in that, in something like that. So I'm excited about that. I have a general question, and correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that a part of the impetus of placing these SBDCs in HBCUs, is in addition to the other campuses across the country, part of it was to facilitate small business growth, encouragement in the surrounding community itself, and part of it is to encourage the student body there, right, in their small business efforts and desires and whatnot. So what's the proper balance? What has been the balance looking back, and what's the proper balance between those two efforts moving forward?
From my perspective at Howard University, having a lead center, the ideal balance would be kind of an equal perspective. That is, there will be faculty as well as student and graduate students participating in many of SBDC's programs, workshops, and activities, while still working with SBDC, working with the community itself and working with entrepreneurs surrounding Howard University. However, the balance is really focused more on the entrepreneurs in the surrounding community, because those are also the areas in which they are held accountable and have to measure. And for as long as I have been the prime investigator on my SBA grant, I've constantly advocated for more information being available to make sure that the SBDC knew that they had an obligation to work more with our students and our faculty.
If I can add, I think the question actually hinges on the entrepreneurship of the university itself. So I think if a university or HBCU in this case is entrepreneur in its endeavors, so it's currently engaging in prospective opportunities such as SBIR or just across the board, then that community engagement will happen naturally, right? Because your university is already part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and entrepreneurial community. So that goes to my original point when I was speaking about infrastructure and the importance of infrastructure for a HBCU to understand how to become entrepreneur as an entity of it in and of itself.
I think that there is it's very important that it be recognized as almost equally balanced, because by virtue of where we're located, the engagement with students, with faculty, with community, we have determined that it's an incredible partnership between all of those stakeholders, and we find that by having entrepreneurial thinking with the students, they're engaged with the small businesses, and we are using Shaw as that central location, in our case, to bring all of these groups together, and it, once again, has amazing potential if it is appropriately resourced.
Dr. Otis?
You've obviously asked a great question. Everybody feels the need to chime in. I would agree that a 50-50 balance is perhaps most appropriate. Historically, Benedict has focused outwardly on the community, developing the surrounding areas and engaging young entrepreneurs in the neighborhoods in which we live, work, and play. Most of our HBCUs are not simply located in a community, they are of the community. They are a microcosm of the communities that they serve. And so it's critically important that we continue that outward focus. At Benedict, we've created a student innovation hub that I'm very excited about and hope to bring to life through the SBA SAM, where our students are actually engaged by businesses around the campus to solve real-world problems. They're having the opportunity to apply what they're learning in the classroom to serve a small business who could not otherwise afford that consulting support. And so the students are learning and growing, the small businesses are developing, and it's a symbiotic relationship between the institution and the community, and that's the kind of thing we'd like to grow and continue to perpetuate.
Wow, so exciting. Thank you. Madam Chair, you bet.
Okay. Thank you. The gentleman yields back. And now the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, who is the vice chair of the committee, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask the panel, I want to kind of follow up on these SAM agreements in terms of effectiveness versus non-effective. And like for each one of you to talk about your experiences, because you sort of heard Ms. Ortiz state the question about this is really based on relationships. That's kind of what I heard. And then also my good colleague from great state of North Carolina talked about those who just talk about it versus those who have contracts. So I need you in a very specific way. You have your chance to tell us, has this been effective or it's not? Start wherever you want, which panel person.
I'll begin. I have a SAM. I've had one. The original one was signed in 2013. We created the office, and we have great relationships with the SBA district office. What we do not have is a specific plan of engagement to how to actualize what is laid out in the agreement. And, you know, we have found that the office is very cooperative, but it's not a plan where we have specific, you know, outcomes and targets that we're working towards. But to address that, SBA has been a partner as we've created other partners. And so together we sort of are trying to work through this. But it would be of great benefit if the plans had, or the agreements had, actual commitments associated with them other than the ability to access the resources that are available through SBA with some kind of definitive commitment, because we are, as been stated earlier, under-resourced, and resources are, you know, a major need to make these agreements actual and effective in our communities.
Howard University has a great relationship with the SBA. That may, in fact, be having had a lead center since 1999, but also it may, in fact, be a reflective of the fact that we're also here in Washington, D.C. with the district office. So we have a strong communications, great interactions. However, my perspective as the dean of the School of Business is that there's more that can be done and more innovation can move forward. But I want to state categorically that we do have a great relationship with SBA.
So at Delaware State University, we have, again, we served in several different capacities as a lead SBDC and also currently as a site. I think effectively in my experience, the office has been more outreaching and not necessarily in-reaching to the students. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there, again, to grow the student acumen and then leverage that for further developing the community efforts, which the SBA has pretty much focused on in our area.
I think what you're seeing is a consistent theme. Individual institutions have meaningful relationships with district offices, and those typically are in, if you'll look, Raleigh, D.C., think about Delaware State's location, we are in a capital city. We have a district office in our city. And so when you heard the representative from Pennsylvania articulate the 40-mile distance, the 60-mile distance, many of the institutions that serve low-wealth first-generation students of color in this country are not located in urban areas. They are not located in capital cities. It is incumbent upon the SBA to outreach to those institutions, for they do not have the capacity to engage. We continue to see the language underutilized by HBCUs. That language is offensive to me. HBCUs simply do not have the staffing, the resources, and the capacity to go and ferret out these opportunities. If the SBA's commitment is firm to these institutions and to these communities, it's incumbent upon them to adopt a more active, engaged approach to reach into these HBCU communities and the neighborhoods in which they serve to ensure that the resources are made available and that the onus and the pressure is not placed on an under-resourced institution to go out and find them and scratch and claw and dig for those resources.
Real quick, Madam Chair, I just want to add this one comment because my time is up. And maybe it's because I didn't ask my question clear enough. I want to make a distinction between relationship and effectiveness. So I'll leave my comment with that. I heard about relationship, but I want to ask about effectiveness, meaning in terms of outcomes. I understand about relationships. You know, you can have a relationship and that's fine. But what exactly does it mean for the constituencies that you are representing? So I just yield back to Bounce. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And now the gentle lady from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to both of my Madam Presidents and Brother Deans. Thank you for taking the time to participate today. Our schools have incredible success stories to share, and with equitable resources and investment, our schools and our students' limits would be endless. We've done a lot with a little for greater than a century, and some of our schools are, Madam Chair, 150 years old. But yet we have continued to produce and produce and produce. Now, Dr. Dillard and Dr. Artis, you both mentioned strategic alliance memos. And if I heard you right, first of all, when did SBA reach out to you to set up the most recent strategic alliance memorandums?
As indicated in the record, our original was 2013, and most recently, April 9th of 2019.
Dr. Dillard?
January 13th, 2013 was the first one. The most recent, April 9th, 2019.
So we're talking about a 6-year gap. Doesn't sound like much has happened in between that time to me. Now, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. So you haven't had a whole lot going on since in those 6 years.
We have had an average of 1 to 2 engagements per year in the span between 2013 and 2016 at Benedict College.
Dr. Dillard?
Similar at Shaw, we have had a number of workshops. We have partnered with other entities to do some things, but it's been pretty much similar to what Benedict has described.
Right. Okay. So sounds like I was listening to my colleague here. We need a little teeth in the plan. It's almost like sometimes we give mandates and no money, and so in that sense, I think we do need to provide some support there. But Dr. Dillard, in your capacity as president of Shaw, would you discuss a little bit the benefits of your unique entrepreneurial project, particularly to the students and the surrounding communities? I mean, you've touched on some of that.
Shaw University partnered with an organization, the Carolina Small Business Development Fund, for the purpose of creating an innovation and entrepreneurship center. And the focus of that center has been on student development as entrepreneurs. So we've had great participation from the business community, from some of the SBA offices like SCORE, in helping us to promote students in innovation and entrepreneurship. We've had pitch contests, as Dr. Artis has mentioned, but our IEC has been a very important link to the community, because not only have we had our students engaged, but we've been engaged with as many as 20 new business startups a year as part of a program to get more entrepreneurs into business in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay, so let me. I've got a couple things I want to ask. How do SAMs get created, and who initiates the engagements? If anybody can just respond to that, I've got a little bit of time.
I can't speak to the 2013 agreement, but I can speak to 2019. We received communication from the field office in Columbia, South Carolina, in asking us if we were amenable to renewing the agreement and reconsidering the depth of the engagement between the SBA and Benedict College, to which we readily agreed.
Okay.
Same with the district office in North Carolina in Raleigh. We received the call, and we were certainly interested in continuing the relationship.
Great. Dr. Harvey, you talked about some really interesting things, and so you have a good relationship with SBA as a lead small business. You want to comment further on that? We've got 35 seconds.
Well, again, thank you very much. I believe very strongly that we benefit from being in the nation's capital. We benefit also being able to go down the street or have them come up the street to work with us. One of the things that I think is challenging our relationship with other sub-centers, particularly other HBCUs, is the fact that there is a bit of economic discrimination in the policies that SBA has in the matching of funds. And that's something that SBA needs to consider, whether or not a school seeking to be a sub-center can apply for reduced or eliminated matching funds. I think that's extremely important.
Thank you very much, and you'll have the benefit of some of my dollars coming with my grandson to HU. Thank you, next year.
Thank you.
Well, we want to thank all the witnesses for taking time out of your schedules to be with us today. Thank you for sharing your tremendous expertise. You've shown us that HBCUs offer tremendous opportunities to foster entrepreneurship and to be a catalyst for long-term economic growth. Now, SBA programs are designed to provide small business owners with the resources and tools that they need to succeed. And while we've heard that SBA is taking steps to improve their level of engagement with HBCUs and share resources, clearly more work still needs to be done. So the subcommittee plans to continue with its oversight of SBA to ensure that the agency moves in the right direction in this regard. I would ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record without objection, so ordered. And if there is no further business to come before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, I want to give you my card. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to be down to see you.